Hello and welcome to Profiles in Risk. This is your overly caffeinated host, and today I have with me uh, Jes La Russa, insurance marketing executive, PNC insurance industry expert, insurtech strategic advisor, M&A, M&A integration, fractional CMO, a bunch of other stuff. And recently, one of my favorite people on LinkedIn. I've loved a lot of your recent, like you keep coming up on my LinkedIn over and over and over. For the listeners, in fact, when we got on the call today, I when I opened Jess's LinkedIn, I went like, "Oh, that's who you are. Have we met in person?" And we haven't, which is why I did not immediately recognize you. So, Jess, thank you for joining me today. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And
My
yes, it's good to know that the LinkedIn algorithm is working for me.
Oh yes, it definitely is, and part of it might be that we are both, not only are we connected, but we are both PNC InsurTech marketing, right? So
Yeah.
so so like it makes a lot of sense that we would have a lot of similar interests. But yeah, I've loved a lot of your stuff recently. So for the listeners, today will be one of my favorite types of conversations, a career conversation, and especially. Um, I get a significant amount of marketing people reaching out, marketing people within the insurtech world reaching out for career advice. And I think of marketing, and feel free to disagree with me, but I think of marketing as one of the support services. So what I mean by that is it's not underwriting, claims, actuarial, right? It's not one of like the core parts of what makes insurance different from the rest of the economy. So I always struggle on how to advise people on the marketing side. So I very much look forward to this conversation and to be able to refer it to everybody from marketing, whoever reaches to me again, be like, hey, go listen to this episode. All right. So Jess is a fellow Iowan, and I say that would laugh in my face because my girlfriend laughs every time I say that I'm Iowan at heart. Clearly, like not exactly from Iowa originally, uh, and now in San Francisco. Uh, I will put the ball in your court. We would love to hear your career history, however you want to tell
I did indeed graduate from the University of Iowa.
it.
And sorry, cyclone.
Ooh.
And then immediately after graduation, I moved to Silicon Valley where I did marketing, brand, and public relations for internet startups. And I did that for 5 years and burned out and decided that moving to Sonoma County was something that I wanted to do, but wasn't sure what the job market was like up there. And I don't know if you remember, but people used to search for jobs on Craigslist.
Mhm. Let me pause you for the younger listeners, or for those who are East Coasters who have not spent a lot of time in California and they're not wine snobs. So we have Silicon Valley, we have San Francisco, and a little bit northeast of San Francisco, what 45 minutes an hour,
Yeah, 45.
it is Napa and Sonoma counties, right? And they're next door to each other. And this is the heart of California wine country. So it's a beautiful, beautiful area, and it is well worth a visit, whether you're a wine snob or not. Get a tour with platypus tours, and you could spend weeks touring the wineries. But
Absolutely.
uh, it is not in the pre-remote era. It is not exactly a place you would expect to find a lot of work outside of the wine industry. So
Correct.
continue.
Yes. So this was before anybody worked from home. Now all kinds of people move here and work remotely.
It's such a beautiful area.
Yes, but this would be before COVID, long before COVID. So I would I was contacted for a marketing position by a medical malpractice insurance company called the Doctors Company, and that was 20 years ago. And I was not familiar with the product. I wasn't familiar with the industry. I just figured, well, I can market tech. I'm sure I can also market.
How different can
How
it be?
different could it
This
be?
this super niche part of the already niche insurance industry.
Yes, it
How
is
how different could it be from marketing tech?
just so niche. So I went and I interviewed and they hired me. And that's where I was for 20 years doing marketing and PR and brand and product development and go to market. And we grew when I started at the doctor's company. I believe we had about 18,000 insureds, and we were primarily California based. And when I left in September, we were at about, I believe, 110,000 insureds and nationwide. So I
Very
feel like we
impressive.
had a really great growth trajectory there.
That is fantastic. And it's becoming rarer and rarer to with the insurance. We do have people who spend 30, 40. I went to a anniversary party for somebody at Liberty Mutual, an underwriter who his name was Skip, who was celebrating 50 years at Liberty. And then he
Mm-hmm.
retired a couple of years later, or less than that. He retired a little bit later. So in insurance, that is not so unusual. But it is becoming more and more unusual. So 20 years
Yes.
in the same industry, let alone in the same company,
Yeah, that was quite a
is
run. Yes,
quite a
it'll
run. Yes,
tell you, how great the company was for sure.
absolutely.
You can't stay somewhere for 20 years if it's not a good situation, but it was an excellent company, is an excellent company. Yes. So that is where I was. I spent a lot of time doing mergers and acquisitions. The company grew organically, but also it grew through M&A. And so while I was there, we did 10 carrier acquisitions and I believe 4 agency purchases.
Okay, so you start. For actually, let me go a little bit further. Iowa to Silicon Valley during the heart of the .com or shortly after thereafter. Uh, how crazy was that? Had you spent time in California before? Did you know
No.
what you were getting into? Like that is a crazy move.
Yeah, yes. I knew that I was going to leave the state of Iowa when I graduated from college, not because Iowa isn't great, but because I needed sunshine. Like
Oh yes.
the weather there was really
Awful.
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 And I always told myself even when I was like a little kid, I knew I didn't like the weather. And I told myself that when I was in charge of where I lived, I was going to live somewhere that palm trees would grow. Like that was the metric for me.
Makes perfect sense.
And so the day after I graduated from the University of Iowa, I got in my Nissan Sentra and I drove to Silicon Valley and I got a job.
So you didn't have the job and then move out. You
I
literally.
had I had several interviews lined up.
Oh,
Like it
okay, okay, okay,
wasn't a
okay. So
blind
it was a
lead.
calculated risk.
Yeah,
Okay.
I figured somebody was gonna take me,
Oh,
I
and
hope,
the
right?
and the tech economy was absolutely kicking at that
It
time.
was
Okay.
hot. It was super hot.
Okay,
So
okay, okay, okay. Perfect,
it
perfect.
was, as you say, a calculated risk.
Okay,
My
perfect.
family thought I was insane. They still think I'm insane. Um,
Absolutely. All
going to
right.
Cal.
So you recover your sanity a little bit, and with all that new experience, and instead of going back east or Midwest, uh, you get the job at the doctor's company. So you show up as a senior marketing manager, and over the next 20 years, you have one, two, three large promotions, and all the success that you talked about, growing the company from 18,000 insured to 110,000 insured. Um, what were let's start with the big learnings about the difference of marketing in tech to marketing in B2B insurance.
Well, when I was marketing tech, in most cases, it was a consumer product.
Mm-hmm. And it would have
Um,
made some sense if you had gone to, State Farm and market a consumer
sure.
product.
Yes, but I didn't. I
Uh-huh.
went from marketing tech products, platforms, a lot of internet services, things like that, to marketing medical malpractice insurance to physicians and healthcare providers. And it was not only trying to understand what the product was, the technical background around what I was selling, medical liability insurance, and how that worked and how the business of that worked, but then also how to talk to and influence physician and healthcare providers. That was a
Mm-hmm.
total audience for me.
So how did you handle that? Did you like? I'm trying to think how I would do it. And this is the 2010s,
Mhm.
or the 2005
It was
ish. Okay.
2004,
So
2000.
so
Yeah.
so we have internet. We have a lot of resources,
Yes.
kind of similar to today, except no chat GPT kind of thing, right?
Right.
Less social media and no no
Social media.
no
Yeah.
visible AI, uh, but not the dark ages, right?
Correct.
So
What did,
yeah. So
how did we market? Is that the
no,
question?
and how did you personally approach learning
Oh,
medical liability insurance and learning how to sell to physicians and to health systems?
I am a very good student, shall we say.
Okay.
I was on, and I'm a self-starter, so I was more than happy to do the research and read the publications and learn about the industry without anyone sort of providing me with a curriculum.
Perfect.
And I'm also a quick study, and I was able to look at what the doctor's company had done historically to sort of understand the brand voice and understand the personas of whom we were marketing to. And fortunately, that hasn't changed a ton over time. Even as, we moved into different markets and we moved geographically and we moved into larger health systems and facilities, and it wasn't just independent physician practices anymore that we were marketing to. The tone is the same,
Okay.
right? And so you were able to just uh, work with that. We also had all of the national medical society endorsements. So
And they
American,
already had that when you showed up.
they had 5 of them, I think.
Okay. Uh-huh.
So that was always a really good place
Already had
to
lots of credibility.
go for resources and people you could have direct access to if you needed to talk to them about whether a message was going to resonate, or ask them a technical question around, look, we're developing this piece of content for plastic surgeons. Does this make sense? Is this clinically correct? Things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So we had a lot of those resources in place.
Okay. Okay. So that is very, very helpful. And the title, at the beginning, senior marketing manager, were you already a people leader at that point?
No.
Oh, okay, okay, perfect. So do you become a people leader when you get the director level, or not until
Yes.
you okay. So
Yes.
that
Lead.
transition to from well-paid individual contributor to people leader is a tricky one, and not everybody succeeds at it. How did you
Correct.
approach that transition?
I watched and learned um, how other people do it within the organization. And then I think too, there's just a lot of instinct around leading people, and you either sort of can do it or you can't, and you find out very quickly how it's going to go. Um, so I would say I felt my way more than anything. I did not have any formal classes or training that were provided to me in terms of like, this is how you manage
Okay.
people.
Okay. Okay.
I think I think coming from Iowa, being from the Midwest helps you
I would agree with that.
just be a normal person.
A real human.
Yeah, I think that helped a lot.
I would agree with that. Um, for the listeners, if you're in this situation, check out Manager Tools, manager-tools.com. Fantastic stuff, not insurance specific or marketing specific, but fantastic information to help you in any transition in your management career. They also have career tools. Uh, all right, so you become a people leader. That goes well. Um, and your LinkedIn is interesting. You've got it's the last two roles where you really kind of give a lot of information.
Mhm.
And I get it. You spent 10 plus years in those last two roles in the AVP and MVP role. Um, so in those roles, you led some important projects, right? The product innovation and development initiatives, and the implementation of a new actuarial rating methodology. Uh, how 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 do you market those things? Right, those are kind of internal things that make big difference. But how do we make those into good marketing
Something
in
you
a
market.
right?
They weren't something, I mean, they weren't products to market, but they were strategic tools that we needed to effectively go to market. So, and that's the thing that's interesting about insurance marketing. That was a big aha moment to me when I came from, non-insurance
Mm-hmm.
marketing. Marketing anywhere else is a lot more involved in the overall business strategy because it's not necessary. Insurance companies are led by underwriting and actuarial, right? So marketing in most other places, they're the ones who set the pricing. That's not what happens in insurance.
Not anywhere
We're
near.
told what the
Yeah.
prices are.
Uh-huh.
Actuarial is the one that reviews the risk, and they tell you where you're going to go and target
That is
your
super interesting and makes
product.
so much sense. Yes.
So it's hard to actually be in marketing in insurance and be seen as a strategic leader because in a lot of ways, you're not actually driving the corporate strategy.
That is an incredible takeaway that I am so glad that I will take with me for the rest of my career as I
Mm.
advise people on their careers. Um, and I can see, maybe I'm wrong, but I can see how a lot of marketing people who think so in my world, you either think of yourself as an insurance person, whatever your function, or you think of yourself as a functional person, whatever your industry, right? So most of the marketing people that I run into, my issue advising them is that they think of themselves as marketing people who happen to work in insurance, right? And even if they're looking for their next adventure, they're not specifically looking for their next adventure within insurance. And my view is, I have an industry view rather than a function view, right?
Right.
So I can see how the moment they understand that, the moment, and it might take them a while, but the moment they understand that they will never have enough influence over the pricing, and as such will never get seen the way you were explaining. It has to be tempting to just go to another industry.
Yeah. And I think that's why there's probably not a lot of insurance marketers out there, or at least high level strategic insurance marketers. I
Mm-hmm.
think there are a lot of tactical or, functional marketers who will do your social media account, or they will um, help you run your website, or they'll develop some creative for you. But from a true like strategic marketing approach for go-to-market for insurance, there aren't a lot of people out there because it's not particularly attractive if you're
Mhm.
a marketing person who needs to be running the show.
Yep, that this conversation for me has already been extremely valuable on
Mm.
understanding that which I did not understand before. And I can only imagine for the listeners how valuable that will be. So once you realize that, what kept you at the doctor's company for a while longer?
I like insurance. And that is something that absolutely, had you asked 20-year-old Jess if she liked insurance, I would have asked you if you had a fever.
Uh-huh, yep, that's the normal answer that any 20-year-old us will give you.
But I thought the product was really
It
interesting.
is. It
I
is.
wasn't necessarily attached to needing to run the company,
Okay.
right? If you're not a person who needs to be the boss of everything, then it is okay for you to just find your place and be
Okay.
happy.
So if you can
And
separate from your ego
yes,
and enjoy, get your satisfaction from doing a great job in a industry that does good for the world and where you get paid well, but you understand that you're never going to run the show and you're okay with that, then okay, perfect. And if not, you might be better off in a different industry.
yeah, I mean, you
Uh,
should go to a different industry if you are a marketing person who thinks you're the one who's going to set prices and define product for an insurance company.
all right. Um, so so what about the last transition? You go from AVP to VP of marketing, where
Yeah.
you spent the last almost 5 years of your career. Were those two roles significantly different? Like in
No.
my mind, okay, perfect. Okay, but often, yeah,
No.
often those roles are simply a matter of pay kind of thing.
Yeah. Seniority and pay. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. All right.
How
So,
insurance companies end up so top heavy, right? Like you have people who've been there forever and just get promoted and promoted and promoted. And then the next thing you know, you look around and you've got a department full of vice presidents, and it just kind of doesn't really make a ton of sense.
yes, it happens a ton here. All right. So looking back on this awesome 20-year career of B2B, very specialized marketing within the insurance space, what advice do you have for those that are just getting started in a similar path?
Learn your product. Whether it's medical malpractice, whether it's cyber liability, know it better than anybody else at the company, because that's kind of the only way that as a marketer, you're going to get a seat at the table when it is time to talk about the strategies for go to market. If you're also a product expert, like the product experts in underwriting, the product experts in claims, then you can have a conversation on par with them and understand how best to position that product in the marketplace, because insurance is a commodity. We like to pretend it isn't, but it is. I know, sorry.
Okay.
So you may need to edit that out.
No. We can keep it. We can keep it. I just want to address it. Um, the client largely sees insurance as a commodity, which
Yes, that's what I mean.
makes it, from the marketing perspective, a commodity. From the coverage perspective, there can be significant differences in coverage. But if marketing doesn't work well with every other area of the company to help the client understand
Understand that.
those differences, we are a commodity. Absolutely.
Correct. It's marketing's job to define the differences for the marketplace. And you can't do that if you don't understand the product and you don't
Absolutely.
understand what version of that product the competitor is selling, right?
Uh,
Or if you don't understand the rate structure, or if you don't understand how the claims are handled, or the risk environment, or the tort environment. I mean, you have to understand every component of that product in the marketplace to be an effective marketer, strategic marketer.
Fantastic, fantastic. So you might not have to read actuarial filings, but you might be reading policy language and comparing it to another company's policy language.
You should absolutely read the policy language more than once and read the actuarial filings. Know what's
Holy,
getting
okay,
filed in the
wow.
marketplace. Know what is in the marketplace. Know how your rates compare to the competition, what the difference is. What's the manual rate versus the street rate and why? In medical malpractice, for example, rate filings for competitors didn't necessarily align by specialty, right? So you
Okay.
had a lot of different um, specialty codes based on the kind of procedures those healthcare providers were doing, and they didn't necessarily map to exactly how the competitors looked at that.
Okay.
So you need to understand where you actually are competitive so that from a marketing perspective, you're not marketing in places where you don't stand a chance of writing coverage.
All right. All right. So did you spend a significant amount of time with the actuarial leaders and the product leaders
We
to
had, yes, yes. Um, we also had market research within the marketing department. And so we had data analysts on our own who would take from actuary the data, and we would mash it up, and we would look for areas where we were price competitive and where the doctor's company had decided they wanted to actually target. So we would take, top 10 specialties that the doctor's company wanted to write. We would take top 10 specialties where we were actually competitive,
Mhm.
rate wise, and then we would blend all of that together. And that is where, from a marketing perspective, we would help the business development team go forth and sell.
Okay. You might or might not have an answer for this one, uh, and that's okay. Uh, any specific things for young marketers within insurance to avoid in their career, like career mistakes, whether you made them yourself or not, that you've seen others make, and be careful to avoid.
What I would say now is that you should probably move amongst companies, like and products. You should get a bigger mix
Uh-huh.
of background. Like for me to have only 20 years in a super specific product niche is hard to now go out and prove your worth in some other line of insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I would say is you should probably pivot more often than I did. That would be my say.
Thank you for that sincere advice. Uh, because yeah, it's not easy
No,
advice. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. It doesn't sound like you regret the way you did it. It's just like
no.
looking back on it, it would be good advice for my
Yeah,
daughter if I
and
were giving her advice, kind of thing.
yeah, and I don't regret it. I don't, because I often thought about leaving and going to either a competitor or going and doing something completely different, right? Over the course of 20 years, you absolutely have moments where you're like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Uh-huh.
But I stayed, stuck it out, worked through whatever the challenges were of the moment. Um, but I do look back now and wonder, like, what would have happened if instead of staying, I had done that other thing. Um,
Perfect, perfect. So now last September, if I have the dates correct,
mm,
you make the decision and depart after 20 years at the doctor's company. Um, what's next?
Well, um, I've spent a lot of time asking myself that question. Uh, Sort of wasn't necessarily a detox because I didn't have a toxic anything to exercise per se. But I did have to think about, what do I want to do? Do I want to try and see if there are med mal competitors out there that I should go work at? Do I want to go completely switch industries? And whenever a recruiter would call me for something non-insurance, I was wildly uninterested. Um, and so I just think that I'll probably see if I can, get engaged or stay engaged in the insurance marketing space,
Okay.
leverage my experience for whatever would be a next thing.
Would you prefer a full-time W-2 role with a traditional carrier? Would you prefer a fractional CMO type of role? Would you prefer an
I
insurtech?
think I think it depends on the opportunity from a
Mm-hmm.
um, employment perspective. I worry less about employment status and more about what the opportunity and what the work environment is like and what the product
Mm-hmm.
is and whether it's interesting. To me, that's why InsurTech appeals to me, but I also understand that a lot of InsurTechs aren't necessarily ready for marketing, right? Like InsurTech resources have to go to
Mm-hmm.
building the product.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if it's an insurtech that's ready for marketing and ready for positioning, that would be something that I would love to be part of. Probably what they're going to need rather than a full-time CMO is probably fractional, which is why I put that out there as an offer. Um, they really probably aren't going to need a full-time CMO. Carriers are interesting to me as well because I like carrier environments and I like the product, but they're also pretty well established in their org structures and in their marketing departments. So I don't actually think that there's going to be a lot of carriers out there looking for marketing resources in the near term future anyway.
All right. All right. All right. Um, so we've covered career, we've covered advice to the next generation, we've covered what you're gonna do next. Um, Anything else that you want to make sure that we talk about before wrap this one up? But I have to start by thanking you that you've dropped some significant wisdom here
Oh,
that has been very valuable for me and will be very valuable for any listener that is interested in the marketing side of our industry.
well, good. That is something I'm always happy to talk about. So people can always reach out to me to just kick around some thoughts and ideas and to listen to my sage ramblings about insurance marketing. Um, if you're an insurtech who just needs an advisor, I'm happy to do that as well. We can always work something out. I have had quite a few conversations with insurtechs that just want to talk a little bit about go to market without having a big commitment. And I'm happy to do that too, because I am just always interested to talk about insurance. So,
If you are an insurtech that um, that sells something into either the carrier or the broker space,
mm.
uh, this is a very good idea.
It
Uh,
is, especially, and it's funny that you bring that up because I end up telling people I tell insurtechs trying to sell product into carriers that it's going to be very, very difficult because carriers don't have the infrastructure to take on whatever your offer is.
mhm.
But I think they underestimate the complexity of
Mm-hmm.
the carrier digital transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And a carrier has to transform digitally before they're going to be able to take advantage of any of these insurtech solutions that are out there, right? They are running on old proprietary systems. They've got tech debt that goes for I mean, and I think that's underestimated both by investors and just insurtechs in general. You know,
Mm-hmm.
founders are like, oh, we've
Mm-hmm.
got this great AI claim solution. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm sure it's great. I totally believe you. But
Can it interact with my stone and chisel?
phone, tablet, and
Exactly.
chisel.
Exactly. Yes, every insurtech founder I bring on the podcast, question number one. So question number one is usually uh what is your elevator pitch? Right.
Mm.
And question number two is what is the implementation like? Because um the more naive ones and things are getting better in that world, the more naive ones are like, oh, we are ready to hook into your API.
No.
And uh, yes, okay, so I am very very friendly about saying, okay, yes, some carriers are like today it's much better than it was when we
Oh,
started the
yeah.
podcast, where when anybody said the word API, we knew which carrier they were talking about because there was exactly one that was halfway there. uh, and that right, we've gotten a lot better than that, but almost nobody is at like full API. Right. So you're gonna have to integrate into a messy situation no matter what. And that messy situation might quite literally be AS400s.
Oh,
I
yeah.
like, right. So are you ready? How do you handle that? Right.
Well,
Um,
and that's just the technology challenge,
uh,
right?
yes.
Because then there's the cultural challenge.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, have you read the book The Innovator's Dilemma?
Yes, yes. And
Okay. It's
yes.
it's it's a classic case
Absolutely.
because why would they innovate
Hmm.
when things are fine the way that
Mhm.
they are
No,
and
and
it's
and
going to
and
be so expensive and so painful to do it?
so any insurtech founder will have read the Innovator's Dilemma, but you need to add to the you need to reread the Innovator's Dilemma, keep it in the back of your brain. This is, or in the front. This is like you need to buy a paper copy, even though you'd read everything on an iPad. Buy a paper copy and then slap a big sticky note in front of it saying, "I am trying to go into an industry that was the first to digitize, the first to bring in computers back like 50 years ago, awesome banking, and number two, who is heavily regulated, and that
Mhm.
regulation meant it was hard to update those computers, and it also meant that we had a moat protecting our business, right? So those three characteristics together. Oh, and number four, if you as you become fluent in the history of insurance, you will realize that the insurance companies that survived, that are now 100 years old plus, sometimes 200 years old, were the conservative ones,
Mhm.
right? So my life goal is to convince insurance companies that they need to be progressive, and not progressive the company, but progressive the attitude,
Mhm.
in everything that doesn't risk the balance sheet,
Right.
while underwriting in such a way that protects the balance sheet. The problem is that we are very, very, very used to, as an industry, to be extremely careful. So if you add those things together, you will understand why we are still hiring out of retirement expensive consultants, COBOL and Fortran.
Football. Oh my
Uh,
God. Yeah.
exactly, right. I went to school at Iowa State between 2002 and 2006. I started in computer science. I graduated in management information systems. I was the last class that was forced to take COBOL. This was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Quite simply, you are not going to find people that have that skill set. And the few that still have it are retired, and they're very expensive consultants. This is why carriers have such a hard time integrating, right? So I Universe Dilemma, keeping that in mind, I highly recommend Brian Falchuk's series of books,
Yes.
the future of insurance, especially the first one, which is specifically about how carriers, well, all of them, the first two especially, but all of them. I might not be biased because I'm working on a new one with him. Uh, but the series is fantastic. And Also highly recommend Rob Galbraith's The End of Insurance as We Know It, which is published by Insurance Nerds. So there's your disclosure. And highly recommend Insurance 101 for Innovators by Paul Tetrold, also published by Insurance Nerds. So again, I'm biased on that one. Uh, but you have to understand the world that you're trying to integrate into and the culture that those worlds run into. Stacy Brown at either the first or the second InsurTech Hartford, it might have been the first, had a great session called "He Said She Said," and it was about it was a role play, and they had some carrier executives on stage and some InsurTech executives on stage, and they had them role play a meeting, uh, and then they had them role play the debrief on each side afterwards, right? So basically, the InsurTechs go home going like, this is about to get signed. We need to scale, right, and start hiring people, and then run out of runway. While on the carrier side, they're like, well, that was interesting. We should talk to 16 more options, and between 2 and 5 years, we should be able to make a decision,
Yeah,
right?
let's get that on the 10-year roadmap.
Exactly,
Yeah.
precisely, exactly. Oh, that was really good. Let's get that
Oh,
on the 10-year
wow.
roadmap.
Interesting.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
in those two sides, we're getting better at it on both sides, but that is, you have to understand that world to be successful. And in order to understand that world, work with specialists that understand that world. Work with fractional CMOs, with go-to-market people, with
Yeah.
recruiters, etc., that understand that world and that can be your guides in that world. Uh,
Carriers really need to do their core modernization before we're really going to get anywhere.
and they're all working through it,
They're all working on
right?
it.
But it is
Yes.
so I always use Nationwide as the example because I grew up in Nationwide. I spent 4 wonderful years there, and Nationwide is the carrier where even I was never a manager or above. I was always an individual contributor at every job I've ever had. But at Nationwide, I went through the financial leadership rotation program, and I got to see behind the curtain on a lot of things. And later, I learned that everything I saw, same problems everywhere. Okay, but basically, at Nationwide, the Guidewire transformation was a 9-year, $20 billion process, and no transformation is ever on time and on budget. I left before it finished, right? And by the time a Guidewire transformation ends, in like Guidewire's modern legacy, right?
Yes.
So now we have to go to Guidewire Cloud, right?
Yeah. You're
And,
like, you're 30 updates behind by the time you
it
get
is
your.
never ending. And yes, so you have to understand that world, and some, to their credit, some insurtechs are getting really good at understanding that world. Now they tend to be insurtechs that really respect the what's his name? I can't remember his name. Uh, really respect the rule, which has a name. I gave it the name, and now I can't remember the guy's name. Okay, the rule that basically says Abel Travis, that really respect the Abel Travis rule, which is the word insurtech has the insure and tech. The insurtechs that will be successful are the ones that have both sides of the word, both in the leadership and in the overall employee force. Uh, I think he was brilliant in saying that, and I think I was brilliant in coining that as the Abel Travis rule. And so not only will they respect that, more and more we're seeing insurtechs co-founded by one of us, right?
Yeah.
The agent or the agency owner or the underwriter or whoever, somebody that worked in insurance for several years, detected a real problem and then found tech partnerships to build a solution. And a lot of the people going through GIA today and going through broker tech and going through 101 Weston Labs and etc. fit into that mold. I call that InsurTech 2.0. It's no longer the tech person with a tech hammer looking for an insurance nail. It's that. So, Jes, an absolutely fantastic episode. Thank you so much for your time today. When this goes live, I will tag you on LinkedIn for the listeners. If you want to chat with Jes, at her LinkedIn's right there. Add her on LinkedIn. Say hi. Start a conversation.
Let's talk about insurance.
Exactly. Thank you for your time today. This is a real pleasure.
Thank you.
Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye.